Good afternoon and welcome to Smoke Free Baby. This workshop today is this is a very rough draft of how the workshop would go, and I'm recording this at work currently, so there might be some background noise because that's all the time I have this week. Smoke Free Baby. We are here to discuss how tobacco products can affect your baby. And I can't get my screen to move. Why not? Okay, somehow I got this slide to move, so we'll keep moving forward. This is my introduction, which is who I am. My name is Miss Melanie. I'm a mother to 5 and a super nanny to 5. I'm a certified childbirth educator and a certified labor doula, and currently acting as a public health educator. Why are you here? If you are pregnant and you or a loved one use tobacco products of any kind, if you or someone you're living with want to know the risks using tobacco products when pregnant, if you or someone you live with, taking away the loved one, want to stop using tobacco products for the safety of your child, then you are in the right place. We're going to discuss today what is a harmful tobacco product and why it is harmful. For this workshop, we're going to focus on anything that is inhaled or smoked. We will not be discussing chewed tobacco or smokeless tobacco. First, the most common thing we're familiar with when we think of tobacco is the OG cigarettes, whether they're filtered or unfiltered. It's basically tobacco leaves wrapped in paper. But more popular in this current generation are something called electronic nicotine delivery systems, or ENDS, ENDS units. ENDS units come in different generations, which I'll be working on. They come in the first generation, which can be known by or called by e-cigs or cigalikes. They most often are single use, but sometimes they can be refillable. Generation 2 is called tanks or mods. These are products which can be modified not only to be filled with tobacco substances, but also with marijuana or any other kind of substance. They are usually rechargeable and refillable. A third and fourth generation are sub-ohm tanks and pod mods. These are things that are more commonly known under the brand names of Juul and Sorin. They come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and they are refillable. These are some of the images. We have vaping and e-cigarettes, our first generation, in the large brown image. Up there on the top right-hand side, we notice that e-cigarettes, vaping mods, can come with different flavors, which seem to entice people into using them more because it may not taste just like tobacco, but they may be flavorful. And then in the palm of the hand on the bottom right are other smaller units known as the mod pods. And those are things that are refillable and rechargeable, and they can look like a jump drive or a flash drive stick and many other things. Here we're going to talk about some of the myths about vaping being safer than cigarettes, and I'll have some kind of segue into this slide about the misunderstandings that just because it's a vapor, and a water vapor is how it is advertised, that it's safer than an old school cigarette. This is not true. Vaping may not have as much nicotine. In fact, some of the products claim that they are nicotine-free. And although they may be free of nicotine, they usually have other chemicals in them, formaldehyde and chemicals that resemble car or automotive exhaust, and another chemical that is a known carcinogenic, meaning that it causes heart damage when it is overused. So you can imagine if you are lighting up a vaping or an ENDS unit a couple of times a day, you may be telling yourself that you're not getting tobacco and you're not sending tobacco to your baby, but you are still sending harmful ingredients that can affect not only the growth of your baby, but it can affect the baby's internal organs. And those organs are what we're going to talk about next. We're going to talk a little bit about pregnancy anatomy and tobacco use. As your baby grows, it grows inside the uterus, which is kind of like a water balloon with the baby floating around on the inside. And the uterus is an organ muscle, a muscle organ. It's an organ when it's not pregnant, and it's a muscle when it is pregnant. And that uterus will Yeah. I don't know. I'm not going to go there. Okay, don't want to go too deep in that. The placenta grows inside the uterus up against the uterine wall. And that is what brings in everything that the mother takes into her body, passes through this placenta and down the umbilical cord to the baby. This placenta does not act as a filter. It does not filter out the bad stuff. It will maybe dissipate it a little bit, but in general, everything the mother takes into her body, it goes through that placenta and is delivered through the umbilical cord. So we talked about some of the chemicals that vaping has, along with tobacco itself, and how these things can affect the internal organs of the lungs, and especially the lungs and the heart. The heart of a baby starts growing within a couple weeks after conception. It starts out with two V-shaped, long day at work, which turn into an S shape as they join together. About 6 to 8 weeks, they turn into this S shape configuration, and it is that point that they start pumping blood through the infant's body. And if that tiny heart is starting to develop and it is affected by tobacco use or other chemicals found in the e-cigarettes and the ENDS units, it can hinder its proper development, making it less likely to function properly to supply blood and oxygen to the growing fetus. I have some statistics on the lungs and how they grow and how they continue, both the lungs and the heart continue to grow after the baby is born. And so not only is it important to stop smoking when you're pregnant and to reduce your exposure to secondhand smoke when you're pregnant, but it's also important after the birth because newborn babies, their lungs and heart are still developing. And I've got all that information piled on another piece of paper that I will put in my final project. Then we'll talk about the risks of tobacco smoking. And I kind of did that with anatomy, so I'll have to break it down so that anatomy is specifically the anatomy and how things develop. And here at the risks, we'll talk about preconception. If you're trying to get pregnant and you're using any kind of tobacco product, it can increase your chances of being infertile, making it harder for you to get pregnant. It can also increase your chances of having an early miscarriage sometime within the first few weeks after conception. Once you are pregnant, if you continue to smoke, the damage to the baby's development can result in a high risk of a cleft palate or other physical deformities, an increase in asthma, increased lung and heart issues. And then postpartum, I just blabbed that on the last slide, where we're going to talk about the increased chance of sudden infant death syndrome or sudden unexplained infant death syndrome, also known as SIDS, where a baby stops breathing in their sleep and passes. And the risk of SIDS is greatly increased if a newborn is living in a home where the parents smoke. We will talk about here how these risks can increase the chance that your baby will have problems right after birth, and especially the risk of low birth weight is very common in babies that are born to mothers who use tobacco products. And this is a baby that weighs less than 5 pounds, is possibly born before 37 weeks, and usually ends up spending time in a neonatal intensive care unit where a family cannot hold their babies, may not be able to see them for a couple days, and they are usually being allowed to continue to grow in that isolette with the help of feeding tubes and heart monitors, and possibly even intubated with a little tube down their throat to help them breathe and allow their lungs to continue developing for a few more weeks after they arrive. But it's never too late to stop smoking. Although this particular slide does not pertain to pregnancy, it pertains to cancer in general. It's a great reminder that lungs that have never smoked are clear and free of both carcinogenics, which are found in vaping units, ENDS units, and also tobacco. And you'll see the second image here, the lungs are very purple. Think of that as the black hazy smoke. And if a mother's lungs look like that, an infant's lungs are going to be very similar. And for those of you who stop smoking or who are ex-smokers, you have increases your chances of your lung cell structure rebuilding itself and clearing away the smoke from the past. and reducing your risk of cancer and reducing the amount of harmful substances in your body. And so if it can do this for an adult, imagine what it can do to a baby that's growing inside you. So at any point in your pregnancy, if you stop smoking, you will definitely be benefiting your baby. We want everyone to have a healthy baby and to be able to take their baby home and have quality snuggle time, because skin to skin and quality snuggle time right after birth, immediately after birth, and for those first 3 months has been proven to be very beneficial to baby and mom, reducing the risks of postpartum depression and increasing the growth cycles of the baby. And so by limiting your use of tobacco products before, during, and during your pregnancy, you increase your chance of having a full-term, healthy weight baby with low risks of birth defects, lung, and heart disease. I have a conclusion. This is the end. Yada yada. We're so glad you came. We don't have any games to play with this particular workshop because I don't know what kind of games it would be unless we did something with yarn and a newborn baby doll and we attached things like an intubator and a feeding tube and oxygen. Oh, we did that, and a heart monitor and things like that, showing how difficult it would be to get your baby skin to skin when they're in an isolette. But I don't want to do any kind of fear mongering, so I'm trying to keep this as upbeat as possible. And that is my conclusion. Please join us for Smoke Free Baby at www.smokefreebaby.com.